Internet baby.
True Stories of Spine-Tingling Encounters. Episode 2. My uncle told me this story, his personal experience with his friend Ronnie. One day, Ronnie was browsing on the internet. He read a story about a certain suspension bridge that was located close to his home. The website had plenty of pictures of the bridge in the surrounding area. The next time he met my uncle, he told him about the bridge. It was an old suspension bridge that crossed over a deep gorge. For some unknown reason, it was known as a spot that was notorious for suicides. Every year, at least 5 or 10 people would throw themselves off the bridge and died. Nobody could explain why. They said that the spot was haunted by the ghosts of all the people who had committed suicide there. When my uncle went home that evening, he decided that he had to check out the bridge. He desperately wanted to see a ghost. So, that very night, he set out for the mountains, where the bridge was located. It took him about half an hour to get there. It was almost midnight when he arrived at the bridge, and there was not a single person around. It was dark and deathly quiet. The atmosphere was so spooky and ominous that it sent a chill down his spine. People just fool others about this place, he muttered to himself as he cautiously walked to the edge of the gorge and peered down into its depths. He began thinking about all of the people who had thrown themselves down into the inky blackness. It was so fascinating that he felt forced to tell his friend, Ronnie, about it, so he pulled out his cell phone to call him. However, since he was high up in the mountains, he couldn't get any reception. Looking around, my uncle noticed a phone booth standing nearby. He went inside, put some coins in the slot, and dialed Ronnie's number. "Hello, Ronnie, guess who's speaking?" he said. "I am at the same bridge that you told me earlier. Why don't you join me tonight? It's so pleasant and quiet here." "Why not?" replied Ronnie. "I have seen that place on Google." "Wait there, I am coming." "By the way, where are you calling from?" My uncle laughed. "Oh, my phone is out of range. So, I am calling from a payphone." His friend was confused. "Payphone? There is no payphone there. If there was any, I would have seen it on photos." "Bullshit. There is a payphone on the way to bridge. Now, don't delay. There are people waiting outside for their turn." As soon as he said this, Ronnie shouted, "No, don't move from there. I know that place, and I'm coming in 15 minutes. Just stay inside payphone, and don't put down the phone." "What happened? Just promise me, you won't move from there. Whatever others say, just don't move from there." But his friend hung up. My uncle felt a wave of fear envelop him. He didn't put down his phone. The people outside booth were staring at him. The look in their eyes sent a shiver down his spine. 15 minutes later, when Ronnie arrived at the suspension bridge, he found his friend standing at the very edge of the bridge. He was holding his cell phone against his ear. He had no clue what he is doing. There was no phone booth, and no line of people waiting to use the phone. If he had moved an inch, he would have fallen off the edge and died. None of this should have happened. Moved back into my house after having my ex legally evicted. He left the house trashed, literal piles of trash, holes in wall, carpet beyond repair. I was working full time, and came home and cleaned for hours every night. Lying in bed, no other human being in the house, I would hear 5 footsteps coming down the hall. Over the course of a few weeks, I additionally heard keys dropped on the counter, and then his recliner kicked back. There was no recliner in the house. My dog and cat heard it too. The cat would hide, the dog would give one low growl. We heard this over the course of weeks, once or twice a week. It always stopped with the sound of the recliner. Then it got worse. I fully believe that people can see and hear imaginary things due to stress, being tired, whatever. But I don't believe that is true for dogs and cats. I'm in bed, footsteps, keys, recliner, then the water in the master bathroom started running. My cat flew under the bed. My dog went into full war dog mode. Every hair on her body was up. She stood on the bed barking, growling, licking her lips. She was ready to eat whoever was in the bathroom. Then the water stopped. The house was silent. That big, thick, heavy silence. Ears straining for any sound. I stayed still, frozen, waiting for someone to come out, but no one did. Eventually my dog lay down, but kept staring at the bathroom door. There was no way I could sleep. I psyched myself up, and opened the door. No one was in there. I touched the sink, and it was dry. There's no part of that event that could possibly happen. No way did I imagine the sounds, because my cat and dog heard them too. There's no way the sink could be dry, because we heard the water running. There's no way. There's no way. It still blows my mind. None of it should have happened. I was only 4 when this happened. Was playing outside with my siblings and neighbors, and while they're busy playing, a lady approached me and took me to her place, a nearby neighborhood. After a while, everybody was freaking out, and they started looking for me everywhere. This lady was severely depressed. Her husband left her after their son died. He couldn't handle her depression apparently. She took me to her place, fed me and gave me tons of candy. For a couple days. She also made me wear her deceased son pajamas. At some point, she took me to buy some candy from the store. The store owner knew her, so he reported that to the police. She didn't hurt me at all. The doctor even said I was well fed. I always think of her and pray she's in a better place now. Even tried to go visit her. When I was a college student, her house was sold, and she moved away apparently. My uncle owned a 200-plus-year-old farmhouse, and when they sold it, I helped him clean it out. On the last day all that needed to be done was sweep. There was no furniture etc., and I got there before him. I was standing in the living room, and I heard what sounded like TV chatter upstairs, like when someone is watching a TV in a different room, or people talking followed by a very loud bang like someone pushed over a large bureau. I got out of there quick. My aunt and uncle slept with the light on for 30 years and that, plus some other experiences make me see why. Another time I felt someone sit on my bed while I was facing the wall and place their hand on my shoulder. I've never felt anything like it. Like how I would imagine white static or static noise would feel. Somebody mailed my friend a bunch of pictures of his wife just going about her day. Some of them were taken through windows of their home. Police were called and everything, but nothing ever came of it. They actually moved because of it. My parents bought a house from a man quite a few years ago. He had some major issues, tried to commit suicide in the basement, etc. After my parents bought the house, his ex-wife ran into my mom one day and asked if we had met Mabel yet. She claimed Mabel was the ghost that lived in the house and said she would sometimes wake up at night to the feeling of someone stroking her hair of cheek. Apparently, Mabel had burned to death, though we never actually looked into this. We didn't really think much of it for a while, but come the winter months, weird things would start happening in the house. One morning my mom woke up to the stove being turned on. Another morning she left to do some groceries, and came home to half a cup of coffee sitting on the counter. She hadn't made coffee, because she had gone to a friend's house for coffee that morning, and our dog, who was mostly an inside dog, was outside. In minus 40-degree weather. My sister and I were at school, and my dad were at work. All the doors were locked when she came home, so it couldn't have been someone who snuck into the house. On another occasion I was in the garage grabbing firewood, and had to walk across the double garage to get to the wood pile. At the time we had a cow hanging in there, before we were to have it cut and wrapped. As I'm grabbing an armful of wood, the garage light switched off. The door was really heavy and squeaky, so I would have known if someone had opened the door to shut off the light. The strangest thing that happened though, again happened in the winter months. My mom and I were in the kitchen preparing dinner. She was on the phone with a friend when we started smelling smoke. She got off the phone, and we started searching the house to see where it was coming from. Turns out some papers in the bottom of a box in my bedroom closet were burning. We were the only ones home that day. While we lived there, we would hear footsteps going up and down the 4 flights of stairs, walking up and down the hallway. Sometimes our dog would suddenly wake from her sleep and growl at a specific area. Looking back on it, it was really quite an interesting house. It was known in town for being creepy, and apparently the title was very fitting for the house. This happened about 3 years ago or so. I was sitting in the kitchen, and it was around 10 p.m. or so. I heard a really loud thump in the basement. I live alone with 2 dogs, so any sound is somewhat frightening to me. So, as I'm walking down the stairs to the basement, I hear the thumping again, in an oddly rhythmic pattern. I creak open the door into the basement bedroom, and I see my dog is just ramming his head and body into the wall, over and over. I can't explain to you how shockingly unnatural looking it was. It looked like he was controlled or something. I called him over, and he stopped and came upstairs with me. 3 hours later, I hear the thumping again. I get out of bed again, however, when I went down to check it, it was my other dog that was ramming his head into the wall. It was like he was possessed. Scared the cheese out of me. Since then, nothing like that has happened, but what an unexplainable event.